Let's start. So we're at the intermediate level. What I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted is that I remind people that the premise of this third speedrun is essentially playing as basic as possible. I want to do something that a lot of people on YouTube have requested, which is, and I've done this a couple of times before, where we blunder a piece in the opening, and then I spend the rest of the game trying to come back. So I did that at a beginner level. I did that against 600s or 700s, but let's do that against a 1500 rated player. I can't guarantee that I'm going to win, but I feel like a lot of people on YouTube requested games where I try to come back against intermediate players, and so that's what we're going to do. Okay, let's go. $13.27, meet Sauls. So we're going to go e4, and then we're going to throw in the bishop to a6. And pretend that it's a mouse slip. Thanks, JTD. And b takes a6, already a bit of an encouraging sign. I think black should have taken with a knight. Now, the first step for us is to develop. I mean, without development, we're not going to get anything done. And he says, really? Without development, we're not going to get anything done, and so we should start by playing pretty normally, knight f3. I think a lot of people in this situation would be tempted by f4, but playing the king's gambit down a piece is just an immediate death sentence. Now, I think the approach that we should be taking here is to open up we shouldn't try to close everything down. That's not a particularly effective strategy. We should still try to open up the center. And we should do so in a way that attempts to prevent too many pieces from getting traded. So what am I hinting at here? I'm hinting at the move d4. Just like in the regular Philidor, let's play the move d4, and we can still try to exploit our lead in development. He wants to offer me a draw. Yeah, he's offering me a draw because he thinks it was a mouse slip. This is really funny. I mean, I suppose I could accept and then try it again in a different game. I guess I'll take the draw. That's a very, very honorable thing to do. He says no, I insist. That's incredibly wholesome of him. Just shows you that, very wholesome of my opponent. That is a very wholesome thing to do. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. He insisted on giving me the draw. I suppose we'll try it again. All right, let's try it again. I mean, this time we're playing Serge from Mozambique. Let's do this exact same thing again. Yeah, I actually orchestrated this wholesomeness, so more subs for sure. What do I do now? I mean, that's a very dangerous question to ask me. I feel like this move is just it's so unusual that people are just like, what are you doing? I feel like he's going to say something too. Make it rain. This is a sacrifice. It's a positional sacrifice. We're either ruining his pawn structure or we are getting his knight away from the center. So it's totally sensible. Totally sensible idea. Yeah, that is a cool flag. Mozambique. Is there a name for it? I think we should christen it the Naroditsky Gambit. Oh yeah, I don't think there will be any argument about that. Okay, so he takes on a6 with a knight. And again, nothing that we can do other than to develop, so we begin by playing knight f3. This is going to be very hard to come back from because we did give away our light squared bishop. That's the bishop which often allows us to attack the king side, of course. So it is going to be hard to generate attacking chances, and so we're going to have to do this step by step, trying to keep as many pieces on the board, trying to create complications. Ultimately, when you're in a bad situation, when you're losing or you're down pieces, the thing that you have to aim for first and foremost is to create difficulties, to create a situation where your opponent might actually make a mistake. All right, so knight back to b8. That's an interesting move. I think that our opponent is going for c6. And knight takes e5 here is tempting, but I think it's going to be met with queen e7. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to take on e5 and allow queen e7, because then once we move the knight back, the queen takes on e4 and we have to move our king. That's out of the question. We could play d4 here, but then I think you would take on d4 and then go knight c6, and that also doesn't really inspire confidence. So I suppose we can start by castling, and then we'll decide what to do on the next move. I suppose we could start by castling. Yeah, so probably the best thing to do for us would be to play something like the Ponciani, a move like c3, which perhaps will have the effect of throwing our opponent off. I think the move c3 makes sense here, because we've already castled, and if we can get a quick d4 in, at least we'll try to control the center, and maybe that'll be a jumping off point for some momentum that we can build up. Yeah, it's definitely worth the bishop, the 2 extra tempi. So let's try c3. I'm not claiming that this is the best move. There's nothing particularly good in this position, but it's a try. Now, knight f6 is what I like to see. What should we do now? Do we have to defend the e4 pawn? Should we go rook e1? You want to slap that move? No, we should definitely not go rook e1. We shouldn't go d3. That's not in the spirit of the position. We should go d4. And if you know any Ponciani theory, then you'll know that this is the move. The point is that if e takes d4, then we push the e-pawn to e5. This is a common idea. It happens in many different types of openings. Scotch Gambit being probably the most common example. And if knight takes e4 here, well, that's not dangerous at all. We can either take on e5 or we can play d5. Okay, bishop d6 already. I mean, that doesn't quite give the piece back up, but it comes very close. And this gives us a big chance for counterplay. So what's wrong with this move on a basic level? Well, it blocks in the bishop on c8. This gives us a significant lead in development. So what tactical idea do I have my eyes on? Yeah, so what we want to do here is we want to push this f-pawn out to f4. Obviously not immediately because that's illegal, so what we can do is trade on e5 twice. That bishop's going to land on e5. Then we go f4. Our opponent is forced to retreat to d6, and we go e5. Now, I said that doesn't win a piece. Who can tell me why? What's the flaw of that idea? What does black do in that final position? Unfortunately, he's got the check. He's got bishop c5 check. And after king h1, the knight can jump into e4. That position still looks a little bit iffy for black, so we could go for it and then try to find something there. But the alternative here is to keep the tension with a move like bishop g5. The alternative is to keep the tension with a move like bishop g5. I feel like if we go for the first line, I feel like if we take, it's going to force our opponent into finding all of the correct moves. But wait a second. If we go there in the end, takes... No, actually, I have an idea there. Let's go for d takes e5. Let's go for this line. I came up with what I think is a way to test black in that end position. So let's see, first of all, if black even goes for this. I guess that black could take on e5 with a bishop, but that would be a pretty bad move. Ooh, he's disconnected. Oh no, our opponent is disconnected. You see, this is how well these sacrifices work. I guess it's just not meant to be. Too scared of the gambit. Way too scared of the gambit. Way too scared of the gambit. Now there's a 2-minute auto disconnect because this is a longer game, so hopefully he'll reconnect in time. You absolutely should. Sub leader and smack leader. Yeah, this is a speedrun / internet / I don't know what to call it. Yeah, basically our opponent finding our stream would basically be like Kit Boga, who I really like to watch sometimes. When one of the scammers recognizes him or finds the Twitch stream, that's always a scary moment. When I was on Kit Boga, he was recognized by someone, which was pretty scary. And then he was trying to get that person to play chess with him. And yes, I did do a collab with Kit Boga. That is my one ticket to non-chess Twitch. Fun fact. I think it's on YouTube. It might be in the VODs. I should have saved it. Okay, 25 seconds from disconnection. It looks like he's permanently disconnected, unfortunately. There's supposed to be a little bit of snow tonight, but not much of it. Yeah. Well, that's sad. I guess I can show what I wanted to do in the event of that line. That is, yeah, I guess speedrun is just not meant to happen. We are meant to sit and wait for subs to come in. So, a knight b8 is a bit weird, but actually quite sensible. Castles, knight c6, c3, knight f6, d4. Now, in the mainline Ponziani, c3, knight f6 is the main line. d4. And now, if e takes d4, you go e5. This leads to tremendous complications. This is my game against Bruzan from the US Championship. And this is probably Black's most reliable defense against the Ponziani. Knight d5. And this very much resembles an Alapin with the sort of the whole thing shifted because Black now has the c-pawn rather than the e-pawn. But the move here is bishop c4, kind of Smith-Morra style. Knight b6, bishop b3, and this leads to interesting complications. The position is objectively equal. So you can take a look at my game against Bruzan to see how Black should handle this position. Eric Rosen recommends, I believe, the move queen b3 in this position, also very interesting. So I do recommend the Ponziani as an interesting defense. Well, I wouldn't even call it. I mean, as an interesting opening. If you want kind of a sideline alternative to the Ruy Lopez or the Italian, but you don't want to play something as insane as, let's say, the King's Gambit. No, I don't prefer d5. I mean, Black's other main line is d5 in this position. And here White has this weird-looking move, queen a4, creating a pin against the bishop. No, I do prefer d5. I just prefer this Gambit line with bishop d7. Because the vast majority of people play f6 in this position, and here I think White's just doing well. But I had the Ponziani from the Black side, and I now remember that I showed you guys this Gambit with bishop d7. And then knight d4. You can find that speedrun game on YouTube. All right. So bishop a6 takes here, c3, knight f6, d4. How should Black play in this position? Yeah, knight takes c4 is possible, but Black can simply go d6. Because specifically here, because Black is a piece up, normally I would consider taking on e5 and then taking the queen, right? Because, well, if knight takes d8, then knight takes e5. But because he's a piece up, this is out of the question for White. And so I think d6 would be the most solid. Okay, so if bishop takes e5, who can explain to me why this is already quite good for White? What does White do here? Thank you, Planet Link. Yeah, well, basically, and I've talked about this scenario many times, when there are knights specifically on e5 and f6, that's a very dangerous situation, and there's no pawn on d6. Like, in your mind, you should always keep that in your head, because it occurs in actually quite a few positions. Let me think of a different example where this kind of thing might happen. Well, there's a famous trap in the Alekhine where this happens. So in this position, if Black does not play d6, there's an old move knight c6, which loses the game on the spot. White plays c4, knight b6, and does the same thing on the other side. d5 looks like a blunder, but no, you go c5. The knight has only one square. And now you attack the other knight with f4. There's a Ruben Fine game that went this way. Black loses the piece. So knights are just very, very bad at finding safe spots when they're being assaulted by pawns. So the same thing happens in the event of f4. Yeah, so in this position, f4, knight c6, e5, and this knight has to go back to g8. Now we can go queen g4, and white develops quite a serious initiative. Black is, of course, still better, but this is already something. So after knight takes e5, takes, f4, bishop d6, e5. Now there's this very important check. Then the knight has this e4 square. Who can tell me what white should do in this position? What is the idea that I came up with, which at least poses some problems for black? Not queen. Well, actually, queen d5 is interesting. Queen d5 is very interesting. Because after knight f2 check, you can go king g1, and the point is that the knight doesn't have too many good squares. But I still think that black should be good here. And if bishop b6, then of course you play rook takes f2 and you win back some of the material. No, this is a very interesting idea. I didn't even have this in mind. What I had in mind was queen e2. Now, it's the same concept. Knight f2 check, there will be rook takes f2. And if the knight is defended by d5 or by f5, then you take en passant in both cases, creating the pin. Black is still winning in this position because he can go f5. The knight is secure. But now I calculated further and came up with the move knight d2. And if black is not careful, it's very easy to lose the piece. For instance, if black castles, that would be a serious blunder. Who can tell me why? Yeah, and Enko Dinoco is already on the ball. Knight takes e4, fe4, and queen c4. Loose pieces drop off. You win back the bishop. So in this position, black should probably play c takes d6 to anchor the bishop. But, you know, knight e4, queen e4, we've won a pawn back. But after queen e7, black is still winning. And he's going to castle on the next move. And our initiative evaporates. But that's the best that we could have done.